Welcome back to Lift Your Monday. We got a new little angle going on here and trying out some new things. But today, guys, I'm very happy you guys are back with us. It's another Monday. What a great opportunity to have another great day. You know, people are having those bad days. People are talking about how bad Mondays suck. Don't fall into it. Do not fall into it. Make today a great day. And today, you guys have a great opportunity because you get to listen to a phenomenal guest on the show today. Jake Hamburger, a GA at Oregon. Guys, Oregon, the University of Oregon men's basketball program. He's a GA for them right now. He's working with one of the top basketball teams in the nation. It doesn't get any better than that. He's been able to have conversations with some of the smartest coaches around, Hall of Fame coach. He's been able to have conversations with people at Jordan, with people at Nike. He's having opportunities that a lot of us do not get, and that is because he's taking risks. He's being vulnerable, and we'll talk about that today. I'm very excited to get into that. About that, though, have these opportunities and have these guests, I need you guys to suggest people go onto my website, qooh.me/liftyourmonday, qooh.me/liftyourmonday. You can put questions on there for our Q&As. You can put suggestions, what you want to hear. You can talk about the Q&A we just had that I released on Thursday. So if you haven't listened, go check it out. But you can talk about that and talk about the things you want to hear more about. Also, you can go to my Instagram, h_Jones01, where I'll put up something this week for the next Q&A and about what you guys want to hear next. So make sure you guys are following and pay attention to the Instagram stories on there. Or you could go to my Twitter at CoachJones_HC. There I'll be posting links. But most of the stuff I do is on Instagram, so definitely follow that if you're interested. Also, guys, if you lift your Monday every Monday, find somebody who doesn't, find somebody who hates Mondays, find somebody who's having those Monday blues and share this with them. See if they're about it, start them on episode 1 and work their way up. Today is a beautiful day to have a great day, guys. I'm very excited. You guys are lucky. You guys are really lucky. So let's lift our Mondays today. Man, I'm pumped. Let's have a great day. Welcome, guys. Today on Lift Your Monday, I have a very special guest. His name is Jake Hamburger, and he is a GA at the University of Oregon with the men's basketball team program out there. He started here at Hastings College, and he's gone on to be at a premier school, one of the top men's basketball programs in the nation. So without further ado, Jake, if you want to start, just kind of tell us a little bit about your story, how you got to where you're at now.
Well, first off, I guess I want to thank you, Hayden. I think what you're doing with this podcast is great. I'm honored that you thought of me to come on and have a conversation. Excited to kind of share my story and hopefully give your listeners some stuff to kind of take in and digest and hopefully apply to their lives at some point or time. So, I mean, with my story, I guess the first place I want to start, just because I think it plays a huge part in why my mindset kind of is where it is and why my passion is where it is I played on went to St. Cecilia High School in Hastings and played on an exceptional sports team, basketball, football, specifically basketball. Mike Trader took over my junior year. He's, very active within the Hastings College community, longtime coach, still works in the foundation. He led us and kind of started the ball rolling to 2 state championships. And I don't like to be that guy that's like, oh, still living in the past. But I just had a conversation with a guy by the name of Nico Fern, and he's the product design manager with Jordan brand up in Portland. And we kind of were talking about personal growth, talking about leadership. He's a young leader. He oversees all of the product design at Jordan brand. And he talked about his high school experience with winning a state championship. And we kind of got interested in, why do you think that played such a big part? And being a part of something bigger than yourself and seeing something go from process oriented to a desired outcome at a very young age was kind of monumental in both of our lives, and kind of something that drove our interest to being passionate about helping others get from one place to another, and more specifically helping a group of people get from one place to another. And so for the longest time, I've always thought about that as, man, it was great, won 2 state championships, but when I really started to dig beneath the surface, that fascination and that passion with helping people get to a point where them or their group is accomplishing something bigger than themselves played a huge part in my life, and something that really got me to where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
From there, I went to Morningside College. So I went up the road to Sioux City, with a rival, obviously, in the GPAC. But it was a great opportunity for me just to kind of get out of Hastings. Went up there and played basketball, and I was really adamant on getting out of Hastings. I wanted to live on my own and be away from my family, which was a great experience in itself at the age of 18, as everybody knows, to kind of leave your mom and dad's home and go figure things out on your own and have to make decisions for yourself. And from there, I kind of have an unconventional path. I transferred to UNL, to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, for just a semester. I was going through a time I didn't know, can I still play? Do I go to Hastings? Do I sit out for a year because of the transfer rule?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. So I went there for a semester and soon realized I had to play. I couldn't be without the game, and without the the jersey and the process and all of those different things that come with playing collegiate athletics. There's nothing like it. You can't go to the rec and simulate that. So
Exactly.
I quickly found that out. Went to Hastings my junior year, redshirted for a half a season. Went through a coaching change with Coach Creech being there, and then Coach Gavers taking over for our senior year, which that was a great learning opportunity, being able to see the way Coach Creech did things. Prior to that, being able to see how Coach Sykes did things over Morningside, seeing how Coach Gavers did things. So seeing all of those different coaching philosophies was great in my development as a coach and as a player. And from there, I went on to teach English at Papio South, Papillion La Vista South in Omaha. Great school district, great leadership. I'm very thankful for my time there. Jeff Johnson is the principal. There are some great leaders, great teachers. I really, really enjoyed my 2 years at Papio South, teaching English and special ed, and then coaching JV girls basketball and sophomore boys basketball. From there, I went to Hastings, and I was the assistant coach there for just a year. Worked under Coach Gavers and had a lot of great opportunities learning from a recruiting standpoint, from a college basketball standpoint. And then I was in the right place at the right time and got an opportunity with Coach Altman on his staff. And it's been an awesome experience. It's been one of those things that, every day I have to kind of pinch myself when I walk into the arena and, I'm at the University of Oregon, and it's kind of surreal. Yeah. You know what that's like. And so I'm excited to continue another year here and excited to kind of see where this journey takes me. But right now I'm kind of just focused on, every day being another opportunity, every day being an interview. I'm sure Coach Wells has talked to you about that. That was one
all
thing
the time.
I'm really passionate about, kind of that saying. And so we'll see what goes from there.
Yeah, for sure. And I learned more about your journey there. I didn't know some of those things. I didn't know you went to Morningside.
Yep.
I forgot that you actually were teaching in high school
Yep.
and came out here. And I thought you were actually out here longer. So it's crazy to go all over. And it takes I say courage to take a risk like that. You went from having a job at a high school to getting the job at college to pretty much going back to school and being a GA. And honestly, that's not – I wouldn't say that's easy. Going from the comfort of getting paid to I mean, probably not getting paid the same amount.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a sacrifice that, that I took, and a risk that I took. But I guess the thing with teaching and then going to Hastings and then coming out here was I really just kind of looked at it as an extreme opportunity to learn. Coach Altman's a Hall of Fame coach,
Mm-hmm.
and so being able to see him in action, kind of see him run a program, was an opportunity that it was really hard for me to pass up. And
Yeah,
so
no doubt.
taking that risk, it's been a great experience. It was a great decision, but it definitely did come with some sacrifice. That is definitely right on your part.
Yeah, and with that comes the vulnerability to take that risk and to put yourself in that. I'm sure it was a very uncomfortable situation at first, having to move across the country.
Hmm.
Um, and you and me have had our conversations about vulnerability, and um, you and Coach Wells have really brought vulnerability, the meaning of vulnerability into my life and made me actually think about it. So my question to you is, what does vulnerability mean to you?
Great question. And it's something that I was really, really bad at when I was at the age of 23, 24, 25. It's something that I've learned a lot about in the last 2 years, 3 years. Um, before we got on this call and this podcast, I looked up the definition from a dictionary standpoint, and the definition of vulnerability is being susceptible to physical or emotional harm or attack. And so I really started thinking about that. And the definition for vulnerability to me goes a lot deeper when you want to talk about human development and human growth.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, vulnerability has three parts to it. The first part is just being authentic to who you truly are and living in alignment with, whatever it is your values are. And that's a really, really hard thing to do. Really, really hard thing to do. And, I am at this point in my life at the age of 28, I'm really starting to get comfortable with being who I truly am every single day, 100% of the time. Cause I think that's something that everybody struggles with is we know what's important. We know what our values are, what's right, what's wrong,
Yeah.
but we get pulled in so many different directions,
Yeah.
whether it be our environment at home, whether it be our environment at school, our group of friends, our
Social media.
colleagues, social media. Yes, and that's a very prominent environment in today's age
Mm-hmm.
is, wanting to put on, Halloween's coming up, wanting to put on a mask
Yeah.
of this is who I am on social media. This is who I am when I'm with my parents. This is who I am internally, and this is who I want to be, but I'm
Yeah.
not quite comfortable being that person 100% of the time. And you at your experience, you've talked about it at Texas. My experience here, it's really scary and really uncomfortable to really be who you are when you have Dana Altman, um, Tony Stubblefield, one of our assistants, you're one of the best assistant coaches in the country,
Mm-hmm.
Coach Menega, some of these guys that I'm around on a daily basis. It's uncomfortable to be who I am when I know that it doesn't align with maybe something that they believe in, and being
Yeah.
able to express those values, I think is a really difficult thing, but I think it's a huge piece of vulnerability. And a lot of things that I've kind of thought about through this process of coming on the podcast and through the process of my development is, can you change who you are? Can you change your habits? If you're at a point in your life where you think, gosh, I'm really not happy with who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Can I change that? And I guess I guess I'd like to talk about that with you. I mean, I have my beliefs on it,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
from your perspective, and I guess then I'll answer, can you change who you are? Can you change your habits if you're not happy with them?
Yeah. I fully believe you can. I don't think it's something that happens overnight. I was actually talking to an athlete the other day. We were just talking about diet. Diet's one of the hardest habits because we get into just so many things that are just so common to us. And we were talking about cutting out soda.
Hmm.
And I compared it to smoking. It's not, a lot of times it's not something we just stop. Something we have to just kind of work on. And I think that relates to everything in life too. I think when it comes to, getting up at a certain time, or
Mhm.
let's use going to bed at a certain time. I think that one's a better view. If we need to start going to bed earlier, but we go to bed at 11, we're not just going to be able to start going to bed at 9 o'clock every time.
Mhm.
Because what's going to happen, we're going to hold ourselves to this high standard of, I need to go to bed at 9 o'clock every time. And then the one time we mess up, we get super down on ourselves.
Mhm.
And we then just kind of spiral out a little bit. And like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. But if we work, I think, so I need to go to bed earlier, but I keep going to bed at 11. May I'll start at 10:55. I'm going to
Mhm.
set my alarm or timer or whatever. 10:55, that's when I need to be in bed, going to sleep, phone away. Do that
Mhm.
for 3 days. Then move it to 10:50
Mhm.
and just constantly work at it. And I think that becomes, if we can just, it's that 1%. It's 100% the the 1%. But it's, you have to make a conscious effort. And I talked about it in the podcast before, is making that conscious effort to, if that is what you truly want, if that is where you want to be, then it it's really you versus you in that situation.
Mhm.
And you can get help from other people, but at the end of the day, it comes down to, how bad do you really want that in your life, and is that something that you want? And I saw something the other day. It said, Brett Bartholomew, he was
Mhm.
talking about, you can always motivate somebody, but that can last maybe 1 to 2, 3 days.
Mhm.
You look at somebody's drive, and I can tell you a whole lot more about them.
Mhm.
So
You bring up really good points in terms of like daily wins. I call them daily wins.
mhm.
Um, I never used to make my bed ever. Uh, and now I make it every day because it gets me in the mindset of, when I finish it, I'm like, okay, I already got a win.
Yeah.
The day's already
And me and
started with a
Casey talked
win.
about that the last podcast.
Yeah. And that's something that I've started to, I've done some research on how long it takes to change a habit. And they say that it takes about 21 to 30 days to change a habit. And I think back to when Coach Wells and I kind of started on our quest to change our vocabulary from good to great. And
Mhm.
it took me and took him about 20 to 30 days to change that habit. And the biggest thing with changing the habit, or changing who you are, is being mindful
Mhm.
of that. And, when someone would ask me back when I was trying to change, hey, how you doing? I'd say good. And then immediately in my mind, I
You're
would think,
thinking,
why did I say good?
yep.
I should have said great. And then it goes from you thinking that to saying, I'm doing good. Actually, I'm doing great. And then
Mhm.
you correct yourself vocally. And then it just becomes a habit. And I think when you're asking yourself, can you change who I am? The biggest thing is to be mindful of situations where you have the opportunity to showcase what you value and who you are.
Yeah.
And I think you really learn who you truly are through those uncomfortable situations, because
No, definitely, yeah.
it's very easy to be, yourself when you're around people who you're comfortable with, but it's really difficult to be who you truly are when those values are tested, and when you're around people who don't make you feel as comfortable.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, for me, that's a huge part of the vulnerability, is putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations, and those uncomfortable situations will be around all the time.
Hmm.
And a lot of times we choose to avoid them because of, I think it's, you know, there's a lot of reasons, but
Hmm.
I think it's a risk of failure. I think it's what people might think of us. And I think it's what we're scared to almost truly be ourselves in some ways. And you talked about it, how you feel like you can 100% be yourself. And that's something you've been working on, to
Hmm.
being your true self. And I think a lot of times that's hard, especially being in different environments that you're not comfortable with.
Hmm.
And um, it's very hard. But the satisfaction and the reward you get from some of those situations is, I think, probably one of the best feelings,
Hmm.
because you can truly see yourself. I feel you can see yourself grow. You can feel, you're making the improvements. You can feel, man, I used to not like this. I used to be scared to do this.
Mhm.
Now I'm still kind of scared, but I know I can.
Yeah,
And
it's getting more comfortable every time
yes,
you do it, every time
exactly.
out. And I
And
mean, and subconsciously, you're growing. Subconsciously,
mhm,
I'm growing, and inevitably, we're all growing.
yeah.
Just the human life cycle of growth. But in order to get that deep, below the surface growth, I really think it starts with figuring out who you are
Mhm.
and figuring out what you truly value, and that is essential to the deep growth that you and I are both seeking, and a lot of other people are seeking.
Definitely.
And people, get frustrated at, gosh, why am I not getting any better with this? Why am I not? And I think a lot of times it's because all they are looking at is the outcome,
Mhm.
and they're not looking within at, am I acting in accordance with what I believe? Am I acting in accordance with what I value? Because if you do, and you get really clear with yourself on what you value and who you are, you will see growth in whatever
Definitely.
areas you're after. I
And
truly believe
and I got two things for that. The first is when you said about lining it up with your values. I actually about I spoke to a room full of people today about being human.
that.
I was asked to speak and answer three questions. It was, what does it mean to be human? What is yours to do in the world? And what is the most important thing? Those are the three questions.
Great questions.
And yeah, and I at first I was like, I have no idea. And I had to actually like sit down. I talked to some people about it. I looked some things up to kind of figure out where I wanted to go with it. And then all of a sudden, like they just started clicking. I just started
Mhm.
thinking and everything just started clicking. But the last one, what is the most important thing? And what it came down to is for me, it needed to align with my values and what I believed. And that's something that I've gotten from the 1% culture is I need it to align with my values, because if it doesn't align with my values, why am I doing it?
Mhm.
Like it's not truly who I am if it's not what I believe.
Mhm.
And I don't want to be doing something that isn't who I am, because then I get into maybe bad habits or down the wrong path, and I get lost on my way. I get farther away from the culture that I'm trying to help build and develop. And I think that that's really changed how I view things now when I'm doing things. Like when I do this podcast, um, the people I bring on, the topics I talk about, how I do it, um, things like little things like that is the person I bring on, do they align with what I believe?
Mhm.
They might have a great topic. They might be someone I really like talking to, but is it somebody who I truly think aligns with my beliefs and the culture I believe in? I think
Mhm.
that's huge. And then also the second thing, um, actually I spaced it.
I
Totally
got one.
spaced
I
it.
got
Yeah,
something
go
off
ahead.
that thought. You talked about bringing people on that aligns with what you value and what you believe in, and I think that goes hand in hand with trying to figure out who you are.
Yeah,
It Look around. Who is at, in my vocabulary coach? Well, who is at your round table? Who are you
yeah,
spending your time with on a daily basis? Do you need to cut some friends out of your life that may be, doing things that you don't align with, or aren't good for you, or are taking you to a place that you don't want to go?
yeah.
If it doesn't align with what your passion is, and if it doesn't align with where you want to be, is it worth it? And I mean, I'm not, and I would never say completely stop hanging out with people if they're your friends,
No,
but
definitely.
how much time are you spending with them? I mean,
Exactly.
if you want to get yourself into physical condition as a strength coach, you're going to make sure that that athlete is, they're working out often. They're doing cardio, they're doing strength training, they're eating healthy. Now, that doesn't mean that they can never go have dessert or they can
Mhm.
never go eat out. But how much are they eating out? How much are they
Yeah.
eating for dessert? You got to have that stuff in moderation. And I think that that's another very scary thing with figuring out who you are and then executing that is what are my friends and what are my family going to think of me acting this way when maybe I didn't act this way or I didn't believe these things previously. It's
Yeah.
because it's going to make your friends uncomfortable. They're
And
going
I
to
think
say, oh, Hayden, you didn't used to be like this.
yeah.
You didn't used to say great day. What is it? And you got to be okay with it. And that's
Mhm.
really hard to do. And everybody who's kind of going through this, I would encourage them, and I would want to, validate those feelings that I went through it, you're going through it. A lot of people go through that because you don't want to upset your friends. You don't want to make your
Yeah.
friends uncomfortable, but sometimes that's what it comes to.
And I mean, I'm sure you've experienced, but people have slowly fallen out
Yeah.
of my life that they weren't aligned with what I believe. And I mean, I have nothing against them. It is what it is. And I mean, I nothing but the best for them, but I'm on my way to something, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to let, you know, something like that get in my way.
Yeah.
And they can always come back, and I'll always treat them the exact same.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the best things I ever heard is show me your closest 5 friends, and I can tell you everything about yourself.
That is crazy. I was just thinking that exact same quote. I was literally like, show me your 5 closest friends and there's your future. That is crazy.
Exactly, yeah. And I think um, with that, I mean, it really is just everything because it's kind of funny. Especially when you get into coaching, you see like the little clicks
Mm-hmm.
and you see, especially when freshmen come in, you see them start to hang out with people and you think, is that right for them? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the right path? And um, it's kind of interesting to watch them grow in there and see, how do they develop in that. And that's one thing I really grown to notice a lot more through coaching, is little things like that. Um,
Definitely.
with
We got to
so
get
with,
into, I got part 2 and part 3. We're not only, we're on a part 2 and part 3 of the definition.
I know that's I'm getting there. We just went on a great little tangent there.
We did.
But with vulnerability, right? Making these vulnerable moments, taking advantage of these vulnerable moments, being uncomfortable. If you go in, you're gonna fail,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also gonna succeed. But
Mm-hmm.
in a way, I think failing is this form of success.
Definitely.
But with success, I think success is a beautiful word because it's looked at in so many different ways. A lot of times people think it is materialistic, money, cars,
Yeah.
houses, things like that. But uh, I think success is something that is a lot deeper than what is shown on the outside. I actually saw this sign at Jimmy John's, which is crazy because I was thinking about this podcast, getting ready for it, and I saw the sign. It said, "Yes, success can be money, cars, but for me, success is the legacy that I leave behind to my children."
That's
And
deep. That's
yeah,
really powerful.
and I like that a lot. And for me, I think the exact same thing. I always reference Kobe Bryant, Michael
Mm-hmm.
Jordan, LeBron James.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're successful beyond being, rich and what they have. I think they're successful because their names will never be forgotten ever.
Mm-hmm.
They'll always be remembered as Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and Michael Jordan. Their legacy will never die. And I think in a way that's successful. That's success. But I want to ask you, what do you think is success?
I thought a lot about this, And I have thought a lot about this, and kind of to your point, the difference between a champion and a legend. A lot of
Yeah.
people win championships, but legends are people that are talked about long after they're gone or long after they play a sport. But for me, success it's taking a risk in an uncomfortable situation and then growing and improving from where you originally started and then meeting your desired outcome.
Yeah.
So I mean, and to break that down a little bit, I think taking a risk and doing something uncomfortable is a success in itself.
Oh, I 100% agree.
Because I think about taking a risk and playing really hard in a game, and it's uncomfortable because you're physically exhausting and exhausted, but that's a success because that's going to take you to that desired outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, success is growth. Success is 1%. And so I kind of, when I was thinking about that question of what is success, I tried to kind of combine those thoughts of taking a risk in an uncomfortable situation, growing and improving from where you originally started, and then meeting your desired outcome, because your desired outcome might be different from mine. Mine might
Oh, for
be,
sure.
I heard you say today, you want to be the greatest strength coach ever.
Yeah.
Now, for another strength coach, they might just want to, you know, might want to win 5 championships.
Mm-hmm.
Their desired outcome is different from yours. So I think that you have to get real intentional when you think about success for what it means to you, because it might not mean the same to you that it does to me. Just, and like you said, some people to success, when they think about success, it means money. It means
Yeah, for
cost.
sure.
I want
And
to
then
make X number of dollars, and that's fine.
going back to success, we talk about the vulnerability, we talk about being uncomfortable, and we talk about being successful. And yes, guys, you can always have your money, you can always have, your titles, all that. But truly, truly, I fully believe that success comes from the growth and the legacy. And I feel like the best ways to do that are through our vulnerable moments and putting ourselves in those very uncomfortable situations. Because, like we talked about a little bit earlier, is you might fail. And the best part about that is you failed in an uncomfortable situation, but you succeeded because you put yourself in that uncomfortable situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you look at it in a way, but now you know how not to handle that uncomfortable situation the next time. You can look at it from whatever perspective you want. You can take the negative approach or you can take the positive approach to it. It's the good day, great day mentality in a way right there. You can handle it in your own way. And vulnerability is just a direct relation to success. To I to truly be successful, you have to put yourself in vulnerable moments. The being comfortable, yeah, it's cozy, but I don't think we can truly reach our full potential and truly reach where we need to be without being in those vulnerable moments and reaching success. Quick story. Coach Wells was doing a thought of the day, and he talked about how there's a guy, he went up to heaven, and I'm not exactly sure how it goes, but he was talking to the guy at the front gate of heaven. And he said, who was the best general ever? And he points to some random guy. Do you know the story?
I do. Keep going. Keep
Okay.
going.
He points to some random guy, and he's like, he was never a general. And do you know it? You can probably tell it better. I don't want to
It's been a
butcher.
while. No, it's been a while since I've heard it.
What?
But I remember kind of the gist of it. But when you
Yeah.
got to talking, it made me smile because I can just see Coach Wells, doing his
Saying the
thing,
story.
being in his flow state and telling the story.
Well, yeah, and the guy says, well, he was just my neighbor or something. He says something like that, and the guy goes, Yeah, but if he would have chased his dream, if he would have went after what he really wanted, if he would have been vulnerable and put himself in the situations that were uncomfortable, he would have became the best general of all time.
Hmm.
And I know that's just a story, but if you think about it, we truly will never know what we can be and the potential we have if we never put ourselves in those uncomfortable moments. And with
100%.
that, you might have to make sacrifices. You might have to, give up something that you truly don't want to give up at the time. And it sucks. And I have some stories. I know Jake. I know you've had to sacrifice some things. So if you could just talk about that a little bit. I know one, you had to move to Oregon and didn't really know what was coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with that, what did you have to sacrifice to make that decision to leave a college program to go be a GA?
Yep. The word sacrifice has taken on a completely different meaning in my life since I made the move out here to Eugene.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the first sacrifice that I had to make was leaving the Hastings College program.
Yeah.
We had started school. We had had our first meeting with the team, and I actually had gone to Casey's first class, and then I didn't show up for the second class, and he kind of saw me on campus, and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "God, I saw you," and I was like, "Man, Jake skipped class. He's a grad student. What's going on?" And I had accepted the job, and so I was kind of tying up all the loose ends.
Mm-hmm.
But leaving the program was difficult. And I'll be completely honest. Kevin Miller, who's on campus, a men's player from LA. He was my first recruit, and I went out to LA multiple times, built a great relationship. Spent some time with his family. That was really tough leaving him and leaving the program because I didn't want them to feel like I was abandoning them.
Mm-hmm.
And so leaving them was the kind of the first sacrifice. Some other sacrifices that I've had to make is just being 1,600 miles away from my family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
um, I'll reference this. My fiance, soon to be wife, Cassie, she has made she is, I always joke, if you looked up in the dictionary the word sacrifice, her picture might show up on that
Yeah.
definition, because when you make a sacrifice and you take a risk like I took, it doesn't just affect you, it's
No,
going to affect everybody in your life. And you have to have a great support system, and I'm so lucky to have that, because without that support system I would not be able to do the things that I'm doing, and I would not be able to put forth the amount of passion and the amount of effort that it takes to truly be great in
definitely.
the situation that I'm in. We're all coming up on the holiday season. It's
Mhm.
difficult when in basketball is kind of one of those sports, but last year, for example, I had to fly back. I spent my Christmas in an airport flying back because we practiced the night of Christmas.
Mhm.
This year, I think we're going to be able to come back the day after Christmas, but I'm only getting about 2 to 3 days back in Nebraska with my family over the holidays, and that's difficult. I mean, that the holidays are a different time, and you want to be around friends and family, and but at the same time, you got to look within yourself and look at the situation, and you got to remind yourself that if you want to be great and if you want to chase whatever it is you're chasing, there's going to be some sacrifices, and you got to be
Definitely.
okay with those. And the older you get, I really do think this, the older you get, the harder it becomes to take those risks, because sacrifice comes in a lot of forms. If you have a family, if you have, I mean, your sacrifices are affecting, and the risk is affecting a lot of other people than
Yeah.
just yourself.
Uh, I think you're talking about the sacrifices um, with like family and time, and I think when as a college athlete, like as you come out, I sometimes I don't think they realize the sacrifices you have to make to be a college athlete.
Definitely.
And if you're going to make that commitment, you have to know that there's going to be times where you might not be able to go home.
Hmm.
You might not be able to, you're going to get a little less sleep.
Yeah.
But with that, there's two things. One, I think someone else always has it a little harder.
Yeah.
I think sometimes some athletes are like, "Oh, I can't go home," you know, um, this weekend, but like I got to go last week, I can't go home this weekend. But then you think about like the foreign students who are here, the foreign athletes.
Yeah.
There's some who haven't been home in 2 years,
Yeah.
and sometimes I just think like that we just need to take a step back and think like, is it really that bad? You
We
know?
have a player here at Oregon who his parents still live in Nigeria.
Yeah,
He came over to the United States and he's been living with his aunt and uncle since he was a freshman. And he sees his parents maybe once every 3 years, 4 years. I mean,
yeah, it's crazy.
he has to have conversations with them at different times of the day, but the sacrifice on
Mhm.
his side of leaving your home at the age of 14 to go pursue a better life and to go
Definitely.
pursue an opportunity with education and athletics.
Yeah.
So you're 100% right with the sacrifice that comes with being an athlete, and you're right. It always there's always someone out there who's got it worse.
Yeah, and I think with that, it also is, you go be a college athlete because one, you love your sport, and but two, I think it is because you want to be great and you want to win. That's what I would assume if you're going to play sports in college.
Uh-huh.
And I think sometimes we get lost in that in a way because we don't realize, I can't go home all the time. I can't do this.
Mhm.
We think, oh, I have to go to weights or I have to go to practice. But in a way, uh, I think sometimes we forget that, like me and Coach Gago will say, like, this is stuff we used to pray for,
Mhm.
right? This is what we used to dream about, being a college football player, college basketball player, college soccer player,
Mhm.
right? Going to college practice, right? Going, playing college games, winning college games. And I think we might forget that those things come with it, weights, games, film,
Mhm.
all that. But then at the end of the day, you're getting to do what you used to pray for. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I can't wait to be a college football player.
And
I can't wait.
everybody always sees the end result.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody they always see, your picture in the paper after a big win against
Yeah.
Doane. But what they don't see is the hours and hours that you spent
Everything you put in.
studying late at night because you don't have the time that a normal college student has. All the time spent in the weight room, the summers, the sacrifice. I mean, people don't see that, and I think that's what sometimes makes it hardest because human nature kind of creeps in, and we think,
Yeah.
man, we got it rough,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, you just got to remind yourself that if you want to be great, if you want all these different things, there's definitely a price to pay. And Coach Gavers always used to say, "There's no shortcut to greatness."
No, it's that comes, I think, more than we realize too, that what
Mm-hmm.
needs to go into that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Going back to Kobe Bryant, I just I think he's like the definition of greatness.
You'd have
Um,
some heated debates with some of our guys.
I mean, he might not be the greatest basketball of all time, but what he's been through and what he's done, he is forever great.
I agree.
I don't know much about basketball, but I know he's great. And with that, in the interview I listened to, he talked about how he played youth basketball and didn't make a point for 2 years. He didn't score a point for 2 years. This is Kobe Bryant. Records, known as one of the best basketball players of the time. You can't have that without scoring points.
Mm-hmm.
And he continued to work. He continued to put in the time, sacrifice lots of things. And for me, you talked about what you sacrificed, and I mean, mine's not as big as that, I don't think. But for me, it's been a lot of times it's the family time, I think, but also I think it's, maybe not going out and doing the same thing as what my friends are doing at my
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
What I see other people my age going out and doing, um, family trips. I skipped a cruise this summer
Yeah.
to go intern at Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity, but that's the second family vacation I've missed um, to do this.
Yeah.
And do I regret it? No, not at all. I think it's what I have to do if I truly want to be great.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. I think that's one of the hardest things is say, hey, mom, I can't go on this cruise because I'm gonna be in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and they know, but they're bummed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this Thanksgiving, I'm not going home
Mm-hmm.
because I want to be here with the soccer team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no one forced me. Like I don't want to like say it like I'm doing it to be great. Like, oh, I'm this awesome coach or whatever. No, I truly want to help them any way I can.
Mm-hmm.
So if that means staying here, I'm gonna stay here and do everything I can for them. But I mean, I sacrifice is just truly. I think with success comes with vulnerability, but also comes with sacrifices.
Definitely.
And you have to be willing to sometimes, just take that sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll pay off. I fully believe that it'll pay off if you go at it. You have to go all in. If you're gonna sacrifice something, you can't half sacrifice it. You gotta go.
100%.
Um, and then with that, you can't be scared to fail, because if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it, and you have to know that it's okay if you fail. It's
Mm-hmm.
all right,
Mm-hmm.
because you might fail, but we talked about earlier, you'll learn from that. You
Mm-hmm.
might even learn more from the failure than you did the actual success.
And that's one of those things, the culture and the environment that we live in today's world, because of the social media and because everybody, seems to be living under a magnifying glass or a
Yeah.
microscope a little bit. We've created this environment where people are afraid to fail because, what are people going to think of me?
Mhm.
How am I going to feel about myself if I fail? People might laugh at me. People might make fun. There's all these different things. And I think that's really, really dangerous for us to continue down the path of creating an environment where individuals are scared to fail.
Yeah.
Um, and that goes hand in hand with vulnerability. And this is kind of the third component. We didn't get to the second. We'll eventually get to it sometime. But putting yourself out there in uncomfortable situations. One thing that I think it was a huge moment for me, and you may feel the same, but just talking about your dreams and your passions and
Yeah.
vocalizing them and telling people about them. And I kind of live by this. If you tell your dream or you tell your vision to somebody and they act surprised, shocked, or they laugh, you're on the right path. Keep going.
Mhm.
If you tell them your dreams and you tell them your vision and there's no response, you're not dreaming big enough.
Yeah.
And vocalizing that then puts a little pressure on yourself. You put yourself out there and you're like, okay, well, I don't want to be fake. I
Mhm.
don't want people to think that I'm just all talk. And so it puts a little added incentive into you that, okay, I'm telling people about this. I better start kind of backing this up. And that was to go what I said earlier with my conversation with Nico up with Jordan Brand. We got to talking about Nike and what makes Nike a great company. And he talked about Nike's willingness to take risk. And he talked about the environment where people that work for Nike, they're able to put their ideas out there, their crazy ideas out there, and they don't fear being shut down. They
Mm-hmm.
don't fear being made fun of. Even the Kaepernick advertisement,
Yeah,
that
that's
was
huge.
Nike really putting themselves out there to be scrutinized by the public, but they believed in him and they
Yeah.
believed in what he was about. Now, whether you believe or you don't believe, that's a whole nother argument.
Mm-hmm.
But Nike was willing to put a very polarizing figure with very strong beliefs in something into an advertisement, and they were willing to take the consequences. And I
Definitely.
had this experience. I've had the opportunity to meet and talk with Phil Knight on a couple different occasions, and he tells his story, and he put himself so far out there when he started Blue Ribbon Sports, out of the trunk of his car, selling shoes out of the trunk of his car. And I can't remember, they did like $20,000 his first year. And I'm pretty sure the number was 400 billion his last year. And he talks about
It's crazy.
putting himself out there and taking huge risk.
Yeah.
And to hear it from a guy like him is, it's really, really cool to see, because he's so human. He's so
Mm-hmm.
like you and I. And to hear him talk about those experiences with the passion that he talks about them with, it's really, really cool. And it's
Definitely.
definitely inspiring.
And I think with that, um, there's one last thing I want to say, and then we'll kind of close up. It's we can't grow till we know who we are.
Hmm.
We cannot grow till we know who we are. But I believe that we grow as you discover ourselves. And to discover ourselves, we need to have those vulnerable moments. As we have those vulnerable moments, we discover who we are, and then we truly grow as a human being. And when you guys see yourselves grow, when you feel your growth, and you start to discover your values, what you believe, and they start to line up with what you're doing, that is a cool feeling.
Very
Um,
cool.
I'm not there yet fully,
I'm not
but
either.
the values are lining up, and I'm starting to see the things fall in line, and that is something that's really cool. Um, with that being said, um, Jake will probably have to do another podcast just to kind of finish everything that we wanted to talk about.
No, this was
Um,
fun. This was
yeah,
great. I enjoyed the conversation, and I hope everybody else that's listening, or I hope they enjoy it as well, and I hope they take things from it. But this was great. I really enjoyed this.
definitely. And we're going to do positive vibes. Before we get to that, um, I just want to talk about next episode. Guys, if you have anybody you want me to interview on campus, around campus, shoot me on Instagram, Twitter, or the website qooh.me/liftyourmonday. Let me know. I'd be happy to reach out and try and bring people on. I want to get people on that you guys are interested in and that you guys think that I should talk to. I've had some great uh, suggestions, and I'm already in the works of getting some different people on here. Jake, first, can you give your information out to people who might want to get in touch with you?
Yes. And this will kind of go with the positive vibes as well. But you can find me on Twitter. I think it's at Coach Hamburger. And I say I think because I'll be honest, I use Twitter for information. I'm not super active with putting out my own content.
It's
But
okay if you're wrong. We'll put it on the YouTube, the link on there because I said mine wrong the first time, and Danny
yeah,
fixed it for me.
my email though is jhamburg, JHAMBURG at uoregon.edu. And I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that and my willingness into the positive vibes. So I'll turn it back over to you, and then I'll kind of give that at the end.
Yeah, definitely. So today, Jake is going to handle the positive vibes because he has something really cool to talk about. I think that needs to be heard by everybody on that's listening. So, Jake, all you.
All right. The first thing that I got kind of want to talk about a little bit is that everyone develops and grows and finds their authentic true self at their own pace. So don't get discouraged if you say, oh gosh, well, this person's farther along than I am, or, why am I not to this level yet? And everybody's going to evolve and everybody's going to grow at their own pace. But just know that 100% of that growth and that development is on you. I can't make you grow internally. You have to make yourself grow. Coach Jones, same thing. There are many factors that play a part in this, but the biggest thing I think is being willing to be vulnerable, being willing to take risks. And maybe you have had a negative experience with being vulnerable. Maybe you were hurt in a situation where you put yourself out there. And I understand that that's a bad deal. And that's something that really hurts. But at the same time, take another risk. Find a place where you feel safe and then practice being vulnerable in that safe space. Maybe it's a conversation with a coach on campus. Maybe it's a conversation with a friend, with a parent, with a mentor. Find whatever safe space you have and practice being vulnerable and practice taking risks, because that practice is going to allow you to do it in uncomfortable situations down the road. Seek opportunities within your passion. I think that's a huge, huge thing. You'll never know, and you alluded to this, you'll never know your capabilities unless you put yourself out there and take risks. I never thought that I would be able to coach at the high major Division I level. And the only way I found out was to put myself in a situation where I was vulnerable, to take a risk, and to bet on yourself. When I talk to people, I always say, bet on yourself. Don't bet on somebody else, because there's a more likelihood that you're not going to get the result or the outcome that you want if you're betting on somebody else. But if you bet on yourself, then at least if you fail, you can go down swinging, and you can go down with the mindset that, you know what, I gave it my all and I just came up short. And that's life. There's things that are going to happen within your life that are going to suck. But it's all about how you respond. And you've talked about this in your previous podcast, but bet on yourself. And then the last thing that I guess I want to talk about in these positive vibes is the Hastings College campus is loaded with talent.
Definitely.
And there is a lot of really cool things and really cool changes that are going on within the Hastings College community. The conversations that are happening on campus. I mean, I'm still pretty plugged in at Hastings College with some pretty influential people. And it's really, really neat to hear the things that are being talked about, the things that are being creative, the innovation that's happening on that campus, and the willingness from the top down, from President Fizell down, to take risks, to be vulnerable,
Definitely.
to have these types of conversations that promote and stimulate this growth and this development. And I am so willing to help. Hastings College definitely holds a special place in my heart. I'm working with Coach Wells on getting some internships with the Charlotte Hornets here with Oregon. I want to help people on that campus put themselves out there and see what they're capable of. I've talked with Jarius Stewart, who I know he puts a lot of media content. The kid is talented.
Yeah.
And we've talked about, him being able to do that stuff at whatever level he wants. And so I just want to encourage everybody who's listening from Hastings College to take risks, to be vulnerable, to seek out uncomfortable conversations, and to bet on yourself. And if there's any way that I can help, please don't hesitate to reach out, whether that be via Twitter, that be via email. If it's something that you want to reach out via text, get with Coach Wells. He can give you my number. Please don't hesitate to reach out, because I'm always willing to help. And it definitely is very important, the connections that you have, because I may know somebody that knows somebody that knows
Yeah.
somebody that you want to get in touch with. So don't hesitate to ask. I've had a great time on this podcast, and I think what you're doing over there with the podcast and everything that's going on over at Hastings College is super cool. I'm all about it.
I appreciate that, and thank you for being on. I know with the time difference, it's kind of been
Yeah.
odd trying to figure out when we are going to do this, and you got practice going on and stuff like that. So thank you for finding time to get on here and share your experience. I really do appreciate it, and I think we're definitely gonna have to do another one just from what you bring and the knowledge and the conversation we have. So again, thank you. And with that, guys, I just want you to remember, I'll say it again. One, you woke up this morning, so do not forget that. You get another opportunity to have a beautiful and great day. Also, do not forget to share this. If somebody you know is just not having the best Monday, go out there and share it, because I think this is a conversation that needs to be heard. Um, Taking chances is a hard thing in life, and it's a very rewarding thing in life. But also, do not forget to lift your Monday. Have a great Monday.